We have a dataset across 147 clients for Thursday through Monday, approximately $127 million in revenue, just a hair under $25 million in media spend at an average of 5.1 MER across the dataset and $40.2 million in contribution margin. So we got a big chunk of data that we're in the process of really beginning to tangle with and understand what were the trends. I have a couple of things on my mind that we're working with the data team now to sort out, and they're really all in relation to, this is the first Black Friday, Cyber Monday in the post Andromeda world on the meta side. And one thing that we've observed really all year long is the efficacy of UGC style content creator video on the platform.
All right, folks, welcome back to the DTC Hotline. This is your direct connection to hot takes, to cold truths, to really common advice from the best in the business. I'm your host, Richard Professor Gaffin. Now, call or text 866-DTC-2263. Get your burning ecom questions answered, 866-382-2263. You can leave a voicemail, shoot us a text, ask us whatever's on your mind DTC-wise. Our operators are standing by. Now, speaking of which, we got them both here. First up, I'm going to go with Luke, the weatherman Austin here, coming in live from CTC studios in sunny Southern California. Luke, what's going on?
Oh, it is good to be back home, but going through a bit of travel withdrawal. Tony and I, and then a few other folks from CTC HQ, cruise out to Dubai for about a 5-day trip over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and hung out with Joy Sharma and our accelerator team, and it was incredible. Just great time with everyone in person. Did all the Dubai things, did all the Cyber Monday scaling and overnights necessary to accomplish that. So it's good to be back. Sad to leave.
It's awesome. And of course, we also have Tony the Chopper Chop. So you've been in Dubai as well, Tony?
We did not take a chopper.
No choppers were involved at all, huh?
No choppers. Flew on the largest airplane I've ever been on. It was like 4 stories. I'm not sure. Luke did make an attempt to go to the penthouse area up top.
Nice. In the plane.
But in the plane, yeah.
He made it there.
CTC didn't spring for the lounge, huh?
Made it to the bar in the sky. No, CTC did not spring for first class tickets on Emirates Airlines, just for the record.
We're not there yet. All right, cool. Well, glad to have you back stateside. Maybe at the end we can talk a little bit about Dubai takeaways. But what we want to do first is answer a couple questions here. And one mainly, which is, of course, what else would it be about, which is the following, which is, hey, guys, I'm curious what your biggest takeaways from BFCM this year are. So in other words, what was different this year than last year, what you think, what maybe trends we're pointing to, and then what stories we have from over the weekend that would be interesting to kind of unpack here. So I know you both have a lot of them. So why don't we start with you, Tony?
Well, so let me just kind of set the table here. We've been aggregating some of this data. So we have a data set across 147 clients for Thursday through Monday, approximately $127 million in revenue, just a hair under $25 million in media spend at an average of 5.1 MER across the data set and $40.2 million in contribution margin. So we got a big chunk of data that we're in the process of really beginning to tangle with and understand what were the trends. I have a couple of things on my mind that we're working with the data team now to sort out, and they're really all in relation to, this is the first Black Friday, Cyber Monday in the post Andromeda world on the meta side. And one thing that we've observed really all year long is the efficacy of UGC style content creator video on the platform. And I'm on a quest to prove or disprove a theory that this year our investment into video and specifically UGC content creator format ads is larger than it's ever been before as a function of the Andromeda updates on Meta. So a couple more things that stand out before kicking over to Luke. The early data suggests that our clients in partnership with us and their existing creative produced orders of magnitude more creative. So some of my early data is showing 3-4x more creative year over year to actually get to the results that we got to. And then also an interesting pattern, the new kid on the block, AppLovin, represents the third largest invested channel in our data set out of Meta, Google, Pinterest, Snapchat, YouTube, and TikTok. So a significant amount of resources coming into this new platform during this moment.
Yeah. And as I talked about a little bit with Taylor on our earlier e-commerce playbook, our AppLovin results smashed our target by a lot. So on almost every metric, we were within, like, let's say 10% of goal. With that AppLovin, it really feels like it overperformed. So I'm sure there's more to unpack there as well. But let's go to Luke real quick. Let's give us a BFCM takeaway.
Yeah, I'll do another macro takeaway that's to build on what Tony shared, and then I think we'll get into some of the tactics that frame this up. But so Tony shared across our data set, sort of aggregate what we're seeing, takeaways in channel, macro in terms of year over year and what we're seeing. So this is based on our data from No Commerce as well, that Jeremiah and the team there we're sharing out. Overall 9.1% year over year growth based on that data set from Black Friday 2024, slightly down from 10.2% a year ago. We saw similar outcomes in terms of our data set on aggregate as well, which aligned with that. So, somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10% year over year growth in aggregate. And then order volume was basically flat year over year in that data set. We saw a bit of growth in our data set relative to order volume, but what that indicates is a lot of that growth came from higher prices, higher average order value, right? Rather than the order volume being higher. And then there's other things going on in the macro landscape related to the usage of buy now, pay later, up about 9% overall. 41% of shoppers aged 16 to 24 using buy now, pay later. So I think there are always, the aggregate data is helpful in sort of framing the sentiment more broadly in what we saw, and it's completely unhelpful in framing up the individual outcomes that we saw for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, because those are all over the place in terms of the outcome. But I think helpful for us to understand what happened in the space, 8 to 10% year over year growth on average, and the broader economic sentiment as we think about some of the things Tony shared in terms of additional creative output, the growth of the media channels, and what really jumped out to me from these two data points is the continuation of a trend that we've been seeing, which is brands are needing to find margin relief in the business because of these factors related to tariffs, the macro sentiment, the economy, et cetera. And where that's going is if you start to cut media spend, that's just like that's going to come to haunt you at some point, right? Cut the media spend, your new customer revenue starts to drop. And so what's necessary is keep the media spend going, increase the creative volume to get there, but it's necessary to find relief in other areas, increasing your prices and then in your fixed costs and your fixed costs, what's going into the people, tech, infrastructure that's running your business, so that you can put more into creative and more in media to counteract these trends. So that's the continuation of the trend that we've seen, and we've been sort of framing up in conversations around how we're evolving our service offering to be able to index against those levers of more money into more media spend and more creative, rather than the fixed cost of people, the tech stack, et cetera, which is going to be necessary for brands moving forward to continue to see growth and hopefully buck some of this trend.
Okay, let's jump from the macro into the micro then. You mentioned that it was some individual sort of circumstances or individual examples where there was sort of some tactical insight that could potentially have a little broader application. So I'll kind of let's ping pong back and forth between you and drop a tactical insight for us. So let's go Tony. What's a tactical insight? Really a story over the weekend that was really striking.
I mean, I don't know that this is new news for anyone listening here, but the necessity to monitor media pacing very granularly by the hour and the relationship between this media spend pacing that you're seeking to be at and the revenue and efficiency pacing of the business. So we had more than one situation where we were unable to at first get the media spend pacing out of Meta that we were seeking. And the tactical solution to solve that problem in many cases is to duplicate the campaign and try different bidding tactics to actually get the media spend to go. But this moral of the story is it's not enough to set your campaigns and go do something else on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. It really requires like minute by minute vigilance purely because of the pace of the moment. So yeah, I'm not sure that that's a new news story, but it was a common theme for us in many accounts.
Luke?
There was someone I was going to say connected to what Tony just said, but I'll start with this one and then maybe it'll go back to me. So offer strategy being one of the main levers that we all know is critical during this time period. What occurred to me based on what we were seeing across our data set and for the brands that were winning is the error bars, sort of the like disparate outcomes that are available when thinking about offer strategy and the impact that it can have on the business. And I think the temptation is to think that the revenue outcome is baked, like whether you slice your offer one way or the other, 30% off, or it's going to be, buy two, get one, or whether it's, 3 days only, or whether it's the whole month of November, like the temptation could be that you're just going to kind of get the same outcome and you pull some revenue forward or maybe not. And it's going to be sort of the same, like it's baked, and what occurred to me based on the results you're seeing this weekend is that is one of the farthest things from the truth in this time period. The brands that we saw winning the most were the ones that had really clear urgency and tight time constraints around their offer strategy, where over the past couple years, I'll say like 2 to 3 years, there's been more of a trend in the direction of have a consistent offer that's easy to access. You can run paid media against consistently. You don't have to change out all your creatives, run it earlier so you have more time to run. And then it's like, okay, for Cyber Week, those 7 to 10 days, we're going to run 30% off site-wide, and that's the thing we're going to do, and message 30% off site-wide. And the brands that we saw winning this year were ones that actually opted to tighten the time horizon against their offers, who didn't pull some of that revenue earlier in the week or earlier in the month, but maybe did a VIP launch Thursday and then their biggest day, Black Friday, and then through the weekend. So tighten the urgency around it, but then 2, had tons of mini peaks over the course of Cyber Weekend that they were building into their offer strategy in the form of novelty in the offers, whether that's doorbusters and you're adding new styles every day that get sold out, whether that's tiering up your offer over the course of the weekend. It's flash sales on Saturday and then Sunday and then your biggest offer Monday. And it gives you different ways to message the offer that you're driving and create novelty rather than consistency. It's really an art form to be able to find out, like, to identify the offer that we can run and that can give paid media sort of the consistency that engine needs, and you're not switching out creative every day, and but that in terms of your email messaging and in terms of your own channels, email and SMS messaging, that you can create novelty and urgency around, and then your website and how that's framed can drive it as well. And so heading into next year, I think that is the one thing I would say is like there's just a much larger range of outcomes that I think many brands understand for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that's directly connected to interesting their offer strategy is over that time period and lends to the strengths of each of the channels and built in that way. And we're actually putting together a database of like the Cyber Weekend, the Cyber Week offers that we saw work best of 2025, and we'll make that available at some point for folks, because it's always interesting seeing how many different ways you can slice and dice those 7 days and how many brands do it so differently and see a wide range of outcomes as a result.
All right, cool. So one thing I'll just say, like, to your point, Luke, because I think it's interesting, is anecdotally, for me anyway, this is like one of the first BFCMs where this sort of like general cultural knowledge of Black Friday, Cyber Monday sort of being too long felt like it was a little bit more in the zeitgeist than before. In other words, like my in-laws were like, I don't know about Black Friday. They run the thing the week. Like, I don't know if you have to shop today, whatever. My parents being like, what, that sort of thing. And I wonder if like part of what you're alluding to is like, it's not necessarily that it's too long per se, but that the Black Friday is not special enough or something. And that's kind of the fundamental difference between the people who won and the people who lost. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And I think it's like, you can kind of think about it like an adoption curve and a sort of like oscillating in a different direction, where like, call it 7 years ago, it was less long in aggregate in terms of that time period and the perception. And it's slowly like more and more brands have become like, oh, let's run for the month or let's run for the week. And like, let's add more consistency rather than a different Black Friday offer versus Cyber Monday offer. And there was arbitrage. There's just not arbitrage in that anymore, because that's where I think the majority is sitting now. And the ones that aren't are actually oscillating the other way, seeing where the majority is and actually driving the other direction to, hey, let's actually push for urgency and tight time constraints and go that direction. And then at some point it'll oscillate in a different direction or back the other way. But I think over the next couple of years, we're going to see more of a trend to getting back to the heart of Black Friday, Cyber Monday. The challenge is like, what you do is you introduce more revenue risk for sure. So like, you have to be able to stomach that, and you have to be able to create additional revenue peaks for yourself at other times of the year when you start to constrain the time period. Because if you run the offer for 2 weeks, like, you just have more levers to pull on, and you can like, gives you a couple, like, okay, we saw the first week's performance, now let's change things up for the second week or add this in. If you're doing a thing for 2 days, right, like, you got to do the thing really well. Otherwise, you're going to have some backup options. So that can come either in the form of additional revenue peaks later in December or early in the year, or packing a parachute for Cyber Monday in your Black Friday offer, which we saw for a number of brands as well, which is, let's run this offer, let's start playing for the weekend, but we got a parachute packed with ads, everything we need for the landing page, everything we need for the email to switch the offer over to this higher outcome if we're not seeing what we planned. And we can pull the parachute and we can see the higher outcome as a result.
Which we absolutely had to do in one specific case with a brand that had one of their top selling SKUs that had an offer. They started with one offer that turned out to not have the response rate that we were looking for. So to Luke's parachute packing metaphor,
I like that analogy.
The parachute was unpacked
Yeah.
in order to change the trajectory.
Yeah. And that made, and I think I was talking maybe with Brian or Taylor about this on the pod, or on the e-commerce playbook, but that was like a transformative moment too, right? Like the amount of difference that those types of like hour by hour decisions can make, and the sort of like triage decisions can make, is massive. And in this particular instance, if it's the one I'm thinking of, they were able to switch the offer, and that basically saved the entire day. At up to a certain point, they were trending like 20% behind or whatever. They switched the offer and they were able to make up everything and actually kind of crush their target. So it's just, a good lesson in being able to be flexible, and then just like the value of that day, and how much things can change on that specific.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, right. So like, from a media perspective, like our role in this whole thing is to make sure the media dollars get invested, right? And tactically, we have these different levers to pull in order to compel that to happen. But the precursor to that is the product and the offer. Mm-hmm. And the combination of those two things can yield like dramatically different outcomes.
Cool. All right. More tactical observations if you have. Luke, Tony, anything else pop out?
Media investment, the AppLovin piece of the story is really interesting for one standout reason. So the media investment follows a pretty normalized curve. So Thursday, then Friday is the largest, then drop down for Saturday, Sunday, then Monday is a bump up with less than Friday. So the maximum AppLovin, the peak AppLovin investment actually happened on Monday, and I think it's telling us a story of the efficacy of that media throughout the weekend as media teams worked to deploy those dollars, and we saw the investment increase throughout the weekend, and it actually peak on Monday.
Yeah. So that's an interesting. Let me to summarize that back to you. So like AppLovin just generally did better on Cyber Monday.
Spent more for sure.
Spend more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I'm always curious, like what the human dynamic of that is. It's like you're back at work, so you're screwing around on your phone more. Like what's the?
No, I don't think it's that. No, I think we're just scratching the surface of what's available through that inventory pool. So I think the story I'm making up is that throughout the weekend, people were developing more and more confidence in the channel's ability to return and affect revenue, and as a result, ended up moving more media dollars into the channel in a way that is different than the normal curve.
Luke?
What I think are going to be the main takeaways heading into Black Friday, Cyber Monday next year, as well as future sale moments for brands, is, to Tony's opening point, clarity and transparency and tracking on an hourly basis is just the standard of it. If that's not happening and you don't have visibility into revenue, spend, contribution margin, and then spend and return by channel on an hourly basis, and targets that map with those, you do not
There's
have
no way.
enough. Yeah, you do
You're
not
flying
have
blind.
enough. You do not have enough visibility, and you are going to leave margin dollars on the table, either to the upside or to the downside. And so only at that level of visibility do you have the visibility. Do you have do you see what you need to be able to make the accurate decisions? Two is novelty and offer strategy it's coming back, like tighter time frames, really unique ways at running offers that are really strategic and that cut through the noise. And then three, this is the sort of novel one to tie it off, I think, is email and SMS communication sort of matching the uniqueness of the offer strategy and being something that people are more comfortable leaning into a higher volume of sends because there's different ways to talk about your sale than just, hey, it's 30% off. Hey, reminder, 30% off. Hey, last chance, 30% off. You can talk about these things as, hey, this hero product of ours is now included in the offer. Hey, this collection that you've been browsing is now included in this offer. Even though the offer is consistent, you can talk about it a million different ways. And we even saw brands, we were in the office on Friday, we even saw brands over the course of the day looking at feedback they're getting from customers and things customers are saying, and then firing off emails in the middle of the day related to those specific topics, right?
That's cool.
And even playing into it, right? Like, hey, I know this is the 7th time that you've heard from me today. I just believe in it this much, right? And if a concern is unsubscribe rates and that getting you flagged in terms of deliverability, like a message like that is just not going, that's not going to be harmful in most cases, right? That's very thoughtful, very personal, very relational. And it's the founder or whoever's owning the marketing channel, like responding in real time to the customers and to specific things in the email that then just you're talking about the offer in a unique way and more time. So that's what we want to see more of in future sale periods for our brands and in next year is the hourly tracking, visibility, offer strategy, and the novelty of that narrative. And then speaking about it in as many ways as possible across media, as many channels as possible, scaling AppLovin, right? And then across email and SMS and doing that in a way that cuts the noise and makes it more unique than it candidly has been over the past couple of years, especially where there's been a lot more consistency that's sort of been prioritized over novelty.
Yeah. Okay. One other thing that I wanted to talk about with you specifically, Tony, because I think it'd be interesting to hear your take on it. I talked a little bit with Taylor about how over BFCM, like one of our kind of consistent tropes is that creative is the most important, offer is the most important. That obviously is still the case, as you pointed out, Luke, over BFCM. But Black Friday is one of the few instances where we can actually say like, hey, like media buying tactics actually maybe make a difference here. Or like very specific, clever, like, hey, we need to unlock more volume here. Retargeting's been smashing for one of my accounts. Let's like try that. These sort of like little ways to kind of game the system, so to speak, to get more of an edge. And I was curious, A, what's your general thoughts on that? And B, whether there's any kind of specific instances of that you saw on Black Friday that were interesting.
Yeah, 100%. So I think like there's this value in a certain amount of value in consistency and patience throughout the year, especially like consider that all the media platforms, like, unless you're optimizing against a 1-day click, like for the most part, you're optimizing on some sort of click window that's like more than a day. So if you're doing a lot of decision making, intraday in a sort of a BAU period, you're in some ways fighting against the algorithm. Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and really throughout the weekend, all bets are off as far as, set it and forget it. And in some cases, the posture really shifts because the primary mission in this moment in time is to deploy the media budget. The only thing the number one thing you can't do is let the media budget not get delivered. So there's all sorts of things that we do tactically. I think probably the most consistent tactical approach, at least across CTC, is we use a lot of cost cap, a lot of min-ROAS, a lot of efficiency-based bidding throughout the year. And it's great. It really helps us control for downside and is really predictable. To come into a sale moment like Black Friday and Cyber Monday without having some volume-based bidding campaigns packed in your parachute, to use Luke's metaphor here, is a mistake. So I would say that And this is actually part of the analysis that we're gonna run back, is how much of the media actually got delivered through highest volume campaigns. But I'm gonna estimate that it's somewhere between 30, 40, maybe upwards of 50%. You absolutely need this to be able to fight in this auction. So, and the other thing that we see a lot of tactically is, we sort of joke about it a little bit, but adding zeros to the campaign budgets, right? There's sometimes more than one zero. So duplicating campaigns, adding zeros. All of these are like sending signals, screaming at the platform, deliver my dollars.
Yeah.
You must deliver. And there's like one other thing that I think is really important here from a media buyer perspective, and it's paired with this idea of, hourly tracking, which is the understanding of, if you are looking at hourly tracking on Cyber Monday in the morning and your ROAS is at target, you are not spending enough. You have not delivered enough into that moment. And so this idea of really pushing on the delivery, doing everything you possibly can to push on the delivery during those moments in time, duplicating campaigns, highest volume, anything that you lifetime budgets is another little media buyer hacky thing. So set up a campaign with a lifetime budget for just that day on highest volume, and that will compel delivery. But yeah, the behavior is unique in this moment in time, in line with how much different it is versus any other time of the year.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was just really struck, like talking to you, talking to Taylor, whatever, how much this really is our Super Bowl. Like, the one day of the year, the Super Bowl is the one day of the year every single person cares about football. This is like the 1, 2, 3 days of the year where every single person cares about shopping, particularly online. And that's not the environment that we're in most of the time. And so I think that's kind of like the fundamental context has changed so much that you have to approach it a little different. But okay, cool. I think we're going to cut it there. So I want to end with observations. What was the most interesting thing about Dubai? That's what I'm curious about. I'll start with you.
Dubai is simultaneously the most interesting place and the most uninteresting place I've been to. While you're there, like, this is the progression of you get to Dubai. The first day you get there, you're like, whoa, look at all these buildings. Like, it's so nice and modern. And then what you start to do, like, the next 2 days is sort of like, there's a weird feeling about this place. I'm not really sure what it is, but I feel weird. And then by the end, what settles in is like the parallel might be like, in New York City, you have like all this bedrock. And then you like talk about someplace like Istanbul, Turkey or something. Like, there's just like all this history over centuries that sort of forms the foundation of the city and what's been built. And while we were there in Dubai, it was the 51st anniversary of the United Arab Emirates formation, I believe. I hope that's right. But it was the 51st anniversary of that happening. That's just so new. That's like yesterday in relation to these things and the amount of growth that's happened. And so it's just been sort of like, it's the fabrication and sort of veneer that exists over the place relative to the amount of infrastructure. Like, every building, you're on the 77th floor of this building overlooking like a drone show that's like going over the Ferris wheel on the man-made island, the Palm. It's a fascinating dynamic.
Interesting. Tony, what's the weirdest thing about Dubai?
It was remarkably difficult for me to come across some baklava.
Oh, that's a bummer. That's not what you want. But did you get some? The folks
at the airport lounge on the way out. Yeah.
Airport lounge.
Yeah.
Okay. Finally made it out.
I've sort of second what Luke said. It's like, it's obviously super polished, and I looked out my hotel window. Hotel or as a restaurant, I can't remember. I looked out in my field of view. I counted 14 cranes.
Oh, wow.
Like, literally every 2 inches in my field of view was a crane. So the infrastructure piece of it is striking, and it's really quite beautiful to look at. There is something about there's something that it's like, I don't want to say inauthentic, because that sounds bad, but I crave like experiences that feel really real, and I think there's other places where I've had that. Here's one other thing that was interesting. Very few like cross intersections So
Interesting.
it's not a place where it's like a really walkable city. And when you're driving around, there's not a lot of left turns. There's just all these loops everywhere. So several times we like missed our turn or whatever else. We ended up on a super long loop about. So I don't know, just an interesting
Yeah.
infrastructure traffic control system out there.
Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah. All I know about it is the overhead shot from the Apple TV screensaver. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for us. We lost Luke, but remember, if you want your questions answered on the pod, call, leave us a voicemail, 866 DTC 2263. Shoot us a text there. We'd love to answer your question on a subsequent episode. So, for Tony the Chopper Chop, for Luke the Weatherman Austin, in absentia, I'm Richard the Professor Gaffin. Take care, everybody. Have a